and I guess we have a form.
Yes, sir.
Okay, David's here, good. Okay. All right, so, and Matt just takes the meetings on the way, so. Let's Delegate Robinson, we heard this, everybody was in full committee this morning and heard the genesis of how it got back to us, so. Delegate Robinson.
All right, I have copies of the amendment. So what happened was, there's two bills. I have this bill and I have, get my numbers here, 1670, this is 1679. And they're kind of intertwined. Yesterday, we actually FOIA protection on the recipe. The bill originally included the chemical adject, chemical name, and you know, the industry is willing to disclose that information. And that came out of the FOIA meeting yesterday of general laws. This bill kind of plays into it. What this bill does, though, it codifies what the regulations are requiring for the regulations were passed in December. I talked about that a bit this morning, and so this will codify what's in the regs. What the additional section K, the amendment does is the industry is also going to give a product, the survey, safety data sheet at the time of permitting, and this is just putting that in there that they're willing to do that. This is copies of safety data sheets. This is what one looks like at the time of permitting. Within 7 days, if they go to the locality and ask for the permit, they will include the safety data sheet and get that to the localities, because one of the concerns expressed by the localities was what would be the chemicals. We won't know, you know, in advance until it's done. So that is what this section K does. This is what the amendment does to the bill that you passed out last week.
Anyone have any questions for Casey?
Is the amendment before us yet?
It is not.
Okay, well, I believe the amendment, so
Motion amendment, is there a second? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, move to report the amendment.
What you just did?
No, we discussed before.
You report the bill.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, amended bill. Let's hear from, make sure there's nobody else that wants to speak to this, since it is back in subcommittee, that's okay. Is anyone that would like to speak to the amendment? Please come forward, state your name.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, of course, we were here last week. I think this was fully debated before the subcommittee, but as Delegate Robinson indicated, the two significant concessions that the industry has made to folks who have had problems with this legislation, the environmental groups, the administration, and others, was that we will now allow the chemical name and ingredient number to be disclosed to anyone who wants that information. It's no longer subject to the FOIA exemption. On the bill that is now on the floor, having been reported out of the House Agriculture Committee yesterday, General Laws Committee yesterday, sorry, back and forth between the House and the Senate. The other concession that we made, as she was indicating, is reflected in the amendment that you just adopted. Local governments had expressed concern that they were not going to be able to train their first responders in advance. Because otherwise they would potentially get to a job site, a frac site, and they would get the information, chemical information that you see in these safety data sheets only at that time, which is what happens today if there's an emergency. So with this amendment, the industry is saying that they will make that information available to the applicable local government at the same time that a permit application is made, so that if the locality chooses to train their folks to deal with those chemicals, they will have the necessary information. Otherwise, the bill is before you, and we ask that you favorably report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the committee and the audience like to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Hayes Farley, Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Trade on behalf of the administration. Despite the efforts of the delegate in this amendment, The administration's position hasn't changed, we still oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Larry Lamb, Virginia Association of Counties. Really do appreciate the efforts of Delegate Robinson and representatives from the industry to try and work with us. Our position does remain the same, that we are supportive of full disclosure of chemicals used in the fracking process. I think this improves the bill, but I still need to speak in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Emily Francis on behalf of the Southern Environmental Law Center. We also appreciate the dialogue on this issue, but again, we remain opposed to the bill as written.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I also like to thank the patron for working with us, but we still continue to oppose this bill in the way it's written right now. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Travis Blankenship with the Virginia League of Conservation Lawyers. Likewise, we also still oppose the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? We do have a motion to report the bill. Is there a second? Any questions?
If I could, just Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
Since this is back before us, I know one of the outstanding issues that's out there that was discussed at General Laws yesterday, and I guess I hope industry might rethink their position on it, is making sure that the secret sauce, the mixture, is at least available to VDH and DEQ. And as I mentioned yesterday, when you're talking about the agencies that are responsible for the health and safety of human beings and the health and safety of our environment, it's not just DMME, you're also talking VDH and you're also talking DEQ. And so I don't understand why you wouldn't want to make sure that that information was shared among those agencies ahead of time. I guess, my other issue here is, we're dealing with two bills. This one is, I think, explicitly meant to override the regulations. And so I know the regulatory process was worked through. This comes in and not only trumps that, but I think it's also linked with the FOIA requirements. And so if we don't get the FOIA requirements correctly, essentially what we're doing today unravels a lot of work with regard to the regulatory process. And so I'd be much more comfortable allowing that regulatory process to stand and then just deal with the FOIA part. So anyways, I think everybody needs to understand how these two bills interplay. Correct me if I'm wrong in how that works, but I think this essentially does take that and make legislative what was a very well-negotiated process through the regulations.
Tell your brother.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, no, it's exactly not that way. This bill is not undermining the regs. It is precisely codifying what the regs say. Yes, if there is no trade secret exemption passed, which we expect will happen, we hope will happen, then yes, the disclosure requirement would go away. That is the effect of this bill. The bill is consistent with the regs, as you say, heavily negotiated 3 years of process to get to where we are, and those regs say that all information is made available to DMME and trade secrets are to be protected. So this bill is completely consistent with those regs.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and I asked this, I guess, yesterday, and wanted to kind of press it again, because as far as sharing with VDH and DEQ, it sounded to me like it was just it takes too long, and we prefer that it move faster. And I guess when we're dealing with fracking and injection of fluids, having a little extra time to ensure that those agencies are coordinating seems to be a reasonable step forward. So I wanted to throw that out to you. Feel free to respond, but that's one of the big issues that I have.
Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, we believe that the VDH and DEQ already have an inherent authority to do their jobs to protect the environment, to protect public health. We don't think they need to participate in the permitting processes, which is what we're talking about here, on a well, when DMME has adequately been doing that for decades with no problems. We do not need to interject other agencies into that process. And one of the reasons that's a concern to us is some of the language that's been proposed on this very issue would allow environmental groups, other interest groups to interject themselves in the form of a complaint, which would then trigger DEQ and the Department of Health to get involved with no criteria, no standards upon which they would make their determination. Someone with their own agenda in one of those agencies could decide that this needs to stop or that something substantially needs to be changed, all in a process that's been working just fine with IMME doing it. We don't see anything other than just slowing down the process, perhaps preventing legitimate permits from being issued when Department of Health and Department of Environmental Quality, we believe, already have the authority to do their jobs.
Mr. Chairman.
No, you're right.
Haven't we voted on this bill before?
Well, prior to the amendment.
Okay, and the amendment, actually the focus of our discussion today, having been introduced as a compromise, I think, or as an effort to be more open with localities and give them more information in advance. Whereas this information will be made to the public at a later date, this amendment actually helps the localities as far as giving them information beforehand so they can study it and have that in place and so forth. So I'll call pending question.
Second.
We have a motion to report in a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Duly noted, two
Want
ayes.
to talk more?
Well, that's all right. That's all I know.
Thank you, Alex.
Mr. Chairman.
Move to report.
Oh, well,
That was pending.
that was a pending question.
That was a pending question.
Oh.
I should have called that clear, more clearly. All right, now before us is the bill as amended. Is there a motion to report?
Move to report.
Second?
Second.
Let's do it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Two no's. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is delegate.
See you back in the committee.
Turn your attention to House Bill number 2272. Delegate Kuzak.
There's a amendment nature substitute.
The motion on the substitute.
Move to substitute.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Substitute before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members. This is an issue that's not, it's just starting to become, I guess it's starting to become an issue. You guys have seen those round fluorescent light bulbs that are like circular. They're coming into, they're being sold now in a lot of retail places, and they have mercury in them. And so the problem is, mercury on the landfills leaches into the water supply. When I was a kid, we used to play with the broken mercury. Remember when the thermometer would break and you roll it on the thing? Nowadays, I know, it was awesome. I don't know what it did to us. But now.
Hey, but we can tell what it's done to two of you.
It was great.
Yeah, that's right.
Give me some more right now.
Nowadays, they bring in a hazmat team if that happened near the school or something. So what
We'll
I'm
see
trying-
why the hazmat.
So under current code, residential compact fluorescent light, this is what they call CFL bulbs, are exempt from hazardous waste recycling ordinances. And that was done because at the time, there was no recycling facility in the Commonwealth for these CFL bulbs, which, as I say, have mercury in them. Historically, less than 10% of all fluorescent bulbs are generated by individual households. That number is increasing as people are buying these because they last a long time. They're 4 times more efficient than incandescent bulbs, and they last for years. So and the amount of mercury is 4 milligrams of mercury sealed within the glass tubing, which right now is going into landfills. But as I said, it's not a big problem yet. Don't everybody get worried about it, that the landfills have all this mercury, because these light bulbs haven't been sold in a big way. But people are starting to buy them, so we just want to get ahead of the problem and what we're trying to do is just, all this bill does is grant permissive authority to the localities to develop their own residential CFL recycling ordinance. To kind of mirror how we do it with return home printer cartridges. So it's just that a may, any locality may do this, and that's all it really is. And so it's a permissive authority for localities to fix a problem that is growing. So I just thought we'd get ahead of it, and that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
I don't know if the delegate knows the answer to this question, so I can't find the light bulbs that I love anymore. Like, when I get up in the morning and turn on the light in my bathroom, I gotta wait 10 minutes for it to be bright enough to where I want it. All I can buy is these things. Do you know why that's the case?
I think there's some federal law on this, but I believe these new ones, these CFL ones, and that's why it's gonna start getting more popular, do light up real quick. So that these will light up quick and you won't have that problem. But you're correct, there's all kinds of federal regulations and everything. And I still have some of the old bulbs, I'll bring some over for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, yeah, it is a federal law. It didn't specifically prohibit incandescent lights, but it did apply an efficiency standard to lights, and so in essence, it rules the fluorescent or the incandescent ones out, unless you're a historic site or something like that.
Did Congress pass that law?
Yes.
LEDs
I
are
don't know. I can't.
Maybe something will change. At the federal level.
It could be.
Wait, 9-9.
So those old bulbs that aren't as efficient won't kill you if they break in your bathroom, or won't poison your kid to death.
Correct.
So I can choose a bulb that will poison my kid to death or will make me pay 5 cents more a month on my electric bill. It's so tough to decide
What's
on.
happened now is the marketplace, the LED bulbs are overriding the CFLs, but as the delegate indicated, the CFL had such a long lifespan that they are now getting to the point where they're burning out, so you have to figure out what to do with it. The LED doesn't bring the mercury problem, and it brings a brighter light that comes on immediately.
Oh, these new ones don't have the mercury.
Yeah, look for that.
That's good.
Right,
It's just
Look for LED.
It's the pigtail thing that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions of the page? I have just a concern, and that is, and this I just seen the substitute, but on line 32, it says a person, begin on line 31, a person accepting CFL bulbs and transfer from a CFL bulb retailer shall be allowed a period not to exceed 90 days in which to remove CFL bulbs from the point of collection. So you're saying that if I'm a retailer and I collect these bulbs, I've got 90 days in which to take them to a recycling facility.
Yeah, and the folks like at Home Depot are doing this already, and they would never keep it that long. It's just to give them plenty of time. But because they don't want to store them in their retail, because that's expensive real estate. Anyway, so I wanted to make it long enough for them.
That's a little different from your,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, Doug Bowler.
I actually, and I agree and really like this idea very, very much. And if you're large retailers, you're right, less than 90 days, you're gonna be churning through these things all the time. For some of your smaller mom and pops, like the Ace Hardwares or stuff like that, it very well may be more than 90 days, before they get a critical mass. Because I doubt they're gonna be taking it down to the landfill or a recycler themselves, or they're gonna have a contractor come out and they might, you might have to reach a critical mass in order for a contractor to do that. And anyway, I don't want to do any harm to this. I'm just wondering how critical that is to your.
It's not critical at all. I thought I was being generous, but you're absolutely right. I don't want to. We don't have to have any period of time, frankly. Also, this is kind of mirrors the code on the recycling of the ink cartridges. And that's a 90-day deal, but that. I think we could make it. I'd be open to an amendment if you wanted to change line amendment, change that to something that was acceptable to the retailer, frankly.
That was my initial concern personally with the same thing you just addressed, with the small guys.
Right, that totally makes sense. I would not want to put this to be a burden on them.
Chairman, I believe that provision is directed at the wholesalers who are accepting the bulbs from retailers. So it wouldn't, I mean, it might still be a little guy, mom and pop, but it's not a store that necessarily sells to consumers. So the word person refers to wholesaler
Okay.
in line 25.
That's right, you look at 29.
Okay. Any other questions of the patron?
This is a
Doug,
little
go ahead.
more for staff. Is this under the Dillon rule that that localities have got to get authority on this? They can't, the Board of Supervisors or City Council can't do this today?
Mr. Chairman, I can't say for sure that no board of supervisors could adopt something like this, but it certainly is much clearer and more straightforward when the General Assembly gives the authority to all localities and sets up this framework. I don't think there is a provision that I can think of that says any locality may regulate hazardous waste, household waste, or I don't think you could argue that there's something out there already that necessarily gives localities this authority. And certainly DEQ would have.
Okay. I'd just be interested, I'm generally sympathetic to the purpose of the measure, I just didn't know.
Take a plug.
The precedent for this lead acid batteries, if you look at the code, we did the same sort of thing for lead acid batteries, and a lot of this have required a sign and so on. We've already put that in the code for that instance. This is just following on what we did there.
Gotcha.
Another question, committee. Anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of House Bill 2272? Please come forward. State your name. Anyone? Anyone in opposition to House Bill 2272? Done. Have we heard from the retailers? You know the retail association?
I've had no discussions with them outside of, they know about it, but they have not defined one way. The DEQ did give us the language, and that's the amended language, so that.
Okay. You're right. My concern is similar to what's been expressed before as far as the General Assembly passing legislation that localities already can put in place, or I think they can put in place. It kind of reminds me in some ways of the bottle wheel. Although it's not the same, I see some of the need for this, but proper time out of that budget.
I think it's time, proper time will be now.
Motion to table the bill.
A motion and a second. Table bill is not debatable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
So we have all the noes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 to 4, correct? So the motion fails. So we have a substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to report. Maybe since that is debatable, maybe we can give the delegate a chance to not have a 4-4 tie on that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate, you know, this is a problem that will grow. So it's not, and it's certainly not a bottle. I just want to make it clear, this is not, you know, a bottle. It's not mandating that kind of thing. This is just really a permissive, and I do believe, it's funny because when I was elected, I was a big believer in local politics, local government, and how important it is for them. But then when I got down here, I realized, hey, the General Assembly is pretty important. What we're doing, maybe, you know, I like the fact that we're telling the localities a little bit what to do. So, but it is a tug and pull kind of relationship we have between the General Assembly and the localities. But why give them why not, you know, show them who's in charge and tell them that this is, you know, we're going to let them do this, but it's our decision, not theirs. So that's why I think it's in our purview to pass this bill.
We do have a motion to report. Was there a second?
Yes, second.
Second, Delegate Plum. Any further discussion?
I've got two things I would say. One is, I would want to know when we get to full committee, whether this kind of authorizing legislation is necessary for localities, or whether the The other question I would have, lines 38 to 40 that have the civil penalty option may trouble some people. That's one you ought to think about, whether or not you really want to keep that in the legislation. I suspect, I haven't talked to anybody about this, but I suspect there could be objections on that score. I understand the purpose for it, and I can understand the rationale for it.
And just, Mr. Chairman, just to respond to that, and remember, this is that, and of course, the locality would have to decide to do this or not.
Right.
So,
It's optional.
optional, so that's, but you, so I'm trying to lay out the parameters and make it, that's why I didn't want it to be too onerous, and it's only a $50 civil penalty, but anyway. But certainly, yes, I will address those for the full committee if it does make it out of the subcommittee.
We do have a motion to report. Any further discussion? All those in favor of reporting the bill, please signify by saying aye.
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 So the
Opposed?
ayes are,
No aye this time. Change your mind?
Yeah, okay. Just take it full committee.
But I would like to, with the caveat that you.
And I'll talk to the retail business, yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, next we have Delegate Lopez.
Move report.
Lopez.
1961. Oh, he's not here. Why not?
All right, so we'll wait for him to get back. Billy Rousseau. Turn your attention to House Bill 2159.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This week's 159, cigarette butts and recreational litter. Cigarette butts are the most common type of litter on earth, according to Keep America Beautiful. There are 4.5 trillion cigarette butts a year. Many states, including Georgia, have adopted this revised definition of litter. There are lots of localities, including Reynolds County, Fairfax County, who have public campaigns to try to prevent folks from disposing of their cigarette butts in public. I think one of the biggest concerns people have are cigarette butts are non-biodegradable. So we're just trying to encourage people to dispose of their cigarette butts properly.
I have a question. Do you have to define what litter is? What's the point? I mean, I'm just curious.
I think
From the bottle caps, anything that's, what's the point in defining what litter is?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, well, I'm sorry, let staff use about the answer.
I don't have any particular point on that. The definition of litter currently is including all waste materials, so.
Doug Miller.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would ask this committee to support this bill, and I'll tell you on experience, there's several, I hate passing legislation because of judge problems. You should just be able to you should be able to just go fix the judges. But there is a judge problem with this issue where I've experienced personally myself when I was a police officer. There are some judges where you write a ticket for a guy for littering because he threw a cigarette butt out the window. Judges in this Commonwealth have said, it's just a cigarette butt. That's not really litter. So I would urge this committee to support this bill, even though it's a Christmas tree bill and it's a judge problem bill, but sometimes we pass legislation because of judge problems, because it seems the Supreme Court doesn't fix it for us.
Mr. Chairman, I wholeheartedly.
Don't pass it out there. Any other questions of the patron? Any?
Mr. Chairman,
Billy first.
If I may ask the good delegate, why did he include cigarette butts? I mean, cigar butts.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Ferris, I asked for cigarette butts and they threw cigar butts. I don't know if they go together, but I'm happy to strike that myself. The biggest thing for me is cigarette butts.
our.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I would, I understand already where Delegate Ferris is going with this. I would ask that we not strike that because there are cigar products that have filters and plastic tips on them.
Good point.
Even though I know it, I don't know, I'm not a cigar smoker, but I know some really nice rolled Cuban doesn't have the piece of cigar may not have that, you know, plastic or artificial filtration pieces on them that are very damaging to the environment, our rivers and streams. But I would ask that this committee not take cigars out because of those products. And quite frankly, a cigar smoker shouldn't even be thrown out a butt anyway.
That's the truth.
Agreed. Anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of this bill? Please come forward. Everybody likes dirty codes. Anybody opposed to the bill? It's exciting. All right, let's close the committee.
Move to report.
Motion to report in a second.
Mr. Chairman, a discussion.
Discussion.
For all but one of the reasons that the delegate gave, I hope we will vote against this. He did mention it will become a Christmas tree. I will tell you, if you look at it right now, the definition says all waste material. I believe that would encompass cigarettes and cigar butts. Once we start defining it, I can assure you this committee will be revisiting this on an annual basis, and we'll be adding, you name them. I won't start to name them because I'll give some people some ideas, but we'll be back year after year. I think that's part of why I have just as sort of a general. I'm not, no opposition. I've picked up more cigarette butts from where I happen to be, which is where a parade goes by twice a year, and so I know exactly the problem that you're doing, trying to address, and I think it's a real problem. It's a serious problem. It's one that we face across the Commonwealth. I just think, I don't know that we need legislation or that it will correct it.
Delegate Miller.
Mr. Chairman, what I would say to Delegate Ware is, and I brought that issue up, what I would say is if someone brings in examples where judges are finding people not guilty because of the waste product, then I wouldn't mind the Christmas tree if the legislature all agrees it's a waste product. But I've personally experienced and heard of numerous other experiences from law enforcement officers that judges are saying, it's just a cigarette butt, not guilty. And therefore, if Delegate Ware is correct, if delegates or senators in the future come forward and say beer cans, we should add that to it, and they can give me an example of a judge across the Commonwealth that says, oh, beer can isn't litter, then I would still support that bill. But I doubt they'll have those examples, and that's why I would hope the committee does support this one.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the comments by Delegate Ware, and I understand how difficult Christmas trees can be to deal with in legislation. I think why we actually did single out disposable packages or containers, and why this kind of fits underneath of that is actually because of the first point that had been brought up about it being considered the most common type of litter on Earth. So while we should be pretty leery about tagging on a bunch of things, I think here's one thing that's pretty big issue that a lot of us, a lot of localities, including, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, EML is supportive of the bill.
Now you changed my mind.
A lot of other localities
Plus, there is one other issue I'd like to bring up, and that is the fire issue. And I think, as far as during dry spells, probably more roadside fires lit by cigarette butts. Anything else? Anyway, we have a motion, I guess, to report. Is that correct? Thank you.
Oh, it is,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. I'm dozing off.
We have a motion to report and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of reporting House Bill 2159, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
2 noes. 3 noes.
So our no's are Lear and Wright and Ferris.
Didn't you have to abstain?
You can make my chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Shore. Let's see, is Doug Lopez back there?
He's presenting a bill before criminal subcommittee.
Okay, let's go on to Delegate, Ware, Ferris. Please. Is she, yeah, we could do that, I have a note here that said that she was going to have her bill. Would like it tabled in committee, is that what you heard? Delegate Hoagie's bill, which is the waterfowl blind bill, which is House Bill 1875. Is there a motion to?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Barbara. Delegate Ferris.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I think I've asked to pass amendment. Pass an amendment around.
Is it motion amendment?
I'll move the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Amendments before us. What else was the amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen of the committee. This makes this a Section 1 bill, and it says the Department of Environmental Quality and the Region 2000 Service Office continue to work together to reduce odor issues in the landfill in Campbell County operated by the authority. And the department and the authority will report to the chairman of the House Agriculture, Chesapeake and Natural Resources Committee prior to November 1st, 2017 on such efforts. The authority will connect phases 4 and 5 to the landfill gas collection system installed in phase 3 of the current landfill operated by the authority in Campbell County at such time as the authority engineers advise the authority that the connection will operate efficiently. Mr. Chairman, this is not completely what I would like to have accomplished this session, but I think it is a long way to get us where we need to be with this landfill, and I don't think that the Region 2000 Service Authority will disagree with the language here, so.
Any discussion, any questions of the committee?
Is this a substitute?
Good question.
Yes, sir, it's an amendment in the nature of a substitute, and I'll put it into our staff report for the board.
So is it properly before us?
I believe so.
Anyone out in the audience like to speak in favor of this bill, House Bill 1600?
Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Bill Hefty, representing Region 2000 Services Authority. As I said last week, we take the odor problem issue seriously. We spent $1 million on a gas collection system since last session. And this bill, which would be a Section 1 bill, says that we will continue to work with DEQ on the issue, which we do, and we appreciate DEQ's help in that regard. And as the 2 new cells come on, when it's engineered, when the engineers tell us we can do it, we'll put those up to the system and continue to work on that. So we appreciate the Delegate Ferris and the committee's support of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone in opposition? Delegate Wright.
I'd just like to say I commend Ferris on work on this bill, and if it's a proper time, I'd make a motion to report.
At the proper time, no other questions? Proper time right now? Motion to report? Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just say one thing. We've had this issue a couple of times. I think the delegate has been hardworking and representing his people in his area, and I appreciate what you're saying. I hope that will actually go some way toward mitigating this, which is obviously a very real problem. We had, as you will recall, last year some serious people in here who were very concerned about it.
I echo the sentiments said here. Good job, Matt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Delegate Lopez. House Bill 1861. Right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. We have an amendment with the amendment.
Sure. Is there a motion to move? Second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Let me actually read it.
Okay.
It's a line amendment. It would just add a subsection G at the very end of the bill that says, the provisions of this chapter shall not apply to any all-terrain vehicles or off-road motorcycles as defined in section 46.2-1.
Right. And the reason I do that is that we, similar bills, similar legislation passed in other states is, the intent of this bill is to protect kids and firefighters who would come in direct contact with these chemicals. It's not to address these two areas, and other states have passed similar amendments as well.
Okay, you want to explain the bill itself?
Sure. 1861, protecting firefighters and kids from chemical flame retardants. Flame retardants are one of the most common sources of toxic chemicals in our homes and our lives. While they're originally designed to prevent products from catching on fire, flame retardants and upholstery furniture and children's products have been found to be ineffective, unnecessary, and even harmful in some cases. They're used on everything from furniture to carpeting to children's products. One example is the toxic flame retardant chlorinated tris, which was banned from children's pajamas in 1977. But that same chemical is now showing up in other equally dangerous but legal uses, including crib mattresses and nursing pillows that cradle vulnerable children. Unfortunately, flame retardants don't stay in these products. These chemicals leach out and get into people and pets. The very dust you sweep up on your floor can contain some of these toxic levels of flame retardants. Flame retardants leach out of products and accumulate in our fatty tissue. It's a pervasive problem. Testing from the CDC found flame retardants in the bodies of more than 90% of Americans. Studies have also found that children are at an even greater risk because they play on the floor and put their fingers in their mouths. As a result, they have a 2 to 5 times higher level of these chemicals than their parents. And once they're in their bodies, they do damage. Studies have linked flame retardants to a host of biological and neurophysical ailments, including endocrine disruption, decreased fertility, lower birth weights, and developmental and cognitive problems in the next generation. Flame retardants are also, and this is how I found out, are also put firefighters here in Virginia at a higher risk for certain cancer and other certain health effects. For example, the risk of mesothelioma amongst firefighters is over twice that of the general population, while the risk for esophageal cancer is 62% higher. Toxic smoke created by the burning of these chemicals can even penetrate protective gear. To make matters worse, flame retardants added to polyurethane foam products have been shown to be ineffective in fire protection. If these flame retardants are ineffective, unnecessary, and even harmful, why do we include them in our products? Now here's the backstory. Back in 1975, California adopted a flammability standard that required that these products resist an open flame. Manufacturers added these chemicals to comply with California's standard, but these policies were enacted before scientists were able to determine the effects of these chemicals on public health. In 2013, California standard was changed so that added flame retardants were no longer necessary. Therefore, we no longer need to let California drive the safety of Virginia products. This legislation...
Do you promise you'll stick with that?
Yeah. Forever and ever?
You hold that? You'll hold that?
Once again,
I'm just asking. I want to make sure.
This legislation would prohibit the use of toxic flame retardants in children's products and upholstered furniture, and safer alternatives already exist that still meet fire safety standards. This bill will assure Virginia consumers that products sold in the Commonwealth are free of the worst of these chemicals to protect the health of both firefighters and kids. And one thing that really struck with me when I first learned about this bill was the incredible toxic soup created in fire situations, where firefighters go in and they're not just dealing with the flame and the smoke, they're also dealing with the chemicals from the that are leaching out of these now outdated, inappropriate, ineffective flame retardants. And so, and the fact that they leach through the protective gear of the firefighters, I think it's something we should definitely address. So I hope it's the will of the committee to consider the bill favorably.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Anyone have any questions of the patron?
Don't follow California.
Yeah. Anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of House Bill 1861? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Virginia Diamond. I'm the legislative counsel for the Virginia Professional Firefighters. This particular bill is one of the firefighters' top priorities. It's something that has been sought for several years by the International Association of Firefighters, state by state and federally. These toxic flame retardants are a big concern, as you all know, and as Delegate Lopez said, firefighters are exposed to numerous carcinogens, and they are concerned not only to reduce their exposures, but also to, in their concern for the public, they want to promote this legislation as a way of protecting the public as well. So this is something that is a strong priority for the firefighters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, Ed Rhodes with the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association. We support this bill. One of the major issues that we have with the protective gear is we'll go in and if I'd have known I was going to be talking on this bill this evening, I'd have brought you a helmet of mine that was originally yellow. It's now black from use. But you get the stuff, you get the carcinogenics on your bunker gear. You go back to the station, you take it off. It's still on your clothes. You take a shower. It's still in your system. It's still on your body. You smell it for days afterwards. Earlier today, I got an email from a battalion chief in a county north of here concerning an assistant chief in that county that I worked with for a number of years before he got, I won't say he got smart, but he went to another county when they first started hiring career firefighters. Right now, he's dealing with incurable cancer. Don't know how long he's got to live. And the best guess is we don't even know what kind of cancer it is. We don't know the circumstances, but just guessing from fighting fire, this is where he derived the cancer from. We would ask that you pass this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Wright.
Ed.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. What are the sources are there of, you mentioned like your helmet actually turning black, and I think recently I just saw something on TV about this problem. But when the firefighters are faced with a building that's fully engulfed and so forth, what other sources do they have? This bill wouldn't take care of that problem.
It wouldn't take care of the problem that we have making entry, but even though companies say it's a fire retardant, it really doesn't slow down the spread of the fire. It will still burn. Like with Christmas trees, even if you put a spray a retardant on a Christmas tree, it will still burn and will still get going. My bunker gear, my helmet turned black from going into buildings that were probably too hot to go into, but there was one difference. We were told there was somebody inside. And you just go for it. And that's, that's the reason for that. You're there to protect life and property, and that's part of the deal, is doing that. You take your own risk, you take your life in your hands, and the person with you on the hose line, and you make entry. You know what you're getting into, but if we had the fire retardant materials in the furniture, that would slow that piece of the fire down.
I have a question for you. Is it the flame retardant chemicals that are causing that are the carcinogens, or is it plastic and everything else that's burning that, I mean, is there a way to, are you sure it's the flame?
I will let her answer that question, because I can't even pronounce the words that delegate pronounced.
I can give you this. This is from the.
Right, and it's both, and also when these chemicals interact, it becomes even more toxic. So this won't eliminate the exposure to toxins, but it's certainly one that, there's no reason to continue exposing them to it.
Right. Mr. Chairman, we've got back documentation from several university schools of public health that get into details about these specific chemicals that have been raised and have been addressed in other states. And they are combined, horrible, individually bad. And so if we can just lessen the potential impact, I would suggest considerably by getting rid of one or all 12 of these. I think it's a positive step in the right direction.
I've got another question. I don't know who it would be for. How would a retailer know whether or not the product they were carrying had those chemicals in their products or not?
That's something we've been talking about just recently. Some of the products are known. Some of the products in the past have had a listing of what chemicals are in because of what the California regulations were from 1975. But this is something that, as more states start doing it, industry has to follow suit. And whether or not it's the AG or the agency sort of regulating, they'll come up with those regs after the fact.
I'm just personally very sympathetic toward the firefighters who have to deal with this. My mother's house burned, and it was awful. Just the smoke that was coming out of there it was just so thick and gross. But I am concerned that if all of a sudden all these retailers have these products in their stores and they're breaking the law and don't even realize it.
Well, what's good to know is that because of what happened in 2013 in California, a lot of the retailers who had been making these products have stopped, and when they were directly doing it. But we're trying to, be as effective as we possibly can, and make sure that those gaps that we're missing are covered. And if we have, like I said, if we have more states jump on this bandwagon, I think we can finally address it.
Anyone in the audience, anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? It's a pleasure of committee.
I have my concerns as well. I mean, we followed California, now you're telling us to follow California again, what they did in 2013, right? So kind of follow them, kind of not. We followed California's lead in what was a good-natured idea or a good-hearted idea. It ended up being a horrible idea. I don't disagree at all that these chemicals are bad, but now I don't want to follow California again, which is now we force businesses to put this junk in the products, and now we're going to fine the hell out of them if they don't take it out. It's one of those tough bills. I'm not saying it's a horrible bill. It's not, but I have my concerns with pushing this down the throats of our manufacturers, our wholesalers, and our retailers. I personally think it's too early. There's so many chemicals listed here. This is a big deal.
Actually,
this is a big deal.
Well, to address what you're saying, it's the most egregious, it's the most carcinogenic, it's the most harmful chemicals. And as I mentioned before, a lot of these chemicals have already been taken. Considerable amounts have been taken out of the manufacturing process, and they're not on the shelves anymore. But it's about filling those gaps, and just because they're
Question for the patient, because I know he does a lot of federal work around environmental issues and toxic issues. I know that you've done a lot of. You're very well versed in that. Does the federal government ban certain chemicals?
Yes.
Yeah, the federal government has not banned these chemicals.
The federal process for analysis and banning chemicals is glacial.
Okay.
Glacial. And also, and so what's happening a lot of the time, states either move forward or they don't move forward. We know from a public health perspective, from the medical schools and public health schools around the country, and the institutes around the country, that these are carcinogenic materials. We know that they don't work. We know that they're not safe and actually cause more harm than good. And so other states have done this. We're not the first. We'd be in the middle of the pack. And I think in terms of what we need to do for our kids and also for firefighters, considering that toxic soup, I think it's, and I don't think it'll be that enormous of an impact on manufacturers and retailers because a lot of these chemicals are already out of the stream. I think it's the right bill at the right time.
Yeah, and if I could, and this body doesn't often get out in front of these issues, but I do want to note that we do when it's important. And so a couple years ago, we did a phosphate ban in fertilizer. A couple years before that, we did it in dishwasher detergent. And that was in order to go ahead and protect a very precious natural resource in the Chesapeake Bay. If you look throughout the code, there's other examples where there's an issue, and we decide as Virginians that it's important to us to take a leadership role on that. I think this is one of those areas. And so when you take a look at the order of magnitude of the risk, particularly with our firefighters as they're having to deal with a whole range of chemicals, I think this is one of those areas where it would be a good thing for us to be out on front, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you're right. I noticed looking over the bill in the summary that this appears to be intended more for children. I hear that they mentioned certain times. I don't see anything in here that directly relates to safety of the firefighters. We know that some of these chemicals are not good, but it seems to me if we're going to have a bill like this, we try to make it as inclusive as possible, just rather than having one item. I'd like to see us, like I asked Mr. Rhodes a while ago, what other items are that contribute to the problem the firemen are having? And I think that's a serious issue, but I don't think this would get to it. I think the fact that you mentioned about the problem that may cause some retailers and so forth would actually solve the problem.
Well, to respond to that, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about mostly the chemicals that are added to upholstered furniture. And we didn't mention firefighters, and we're working with the firefighting community. They didn't ask for their for themselves to be included in this. They simply care about the things that are flammable, that will create the toxic soup. So the chemicals are being used in upholstered furniture. They go into buildings with upholstered furniture. And so that's what they're focused on, not focused on making sure that their name is included in this.
Mr. Chairman.
Doug, where?
One is a question and one is a comment. Has the Retail Federation talked to you at all about this?
No, I don't believe they have.
Okay, that suggests to me the bill's out there, they've known it, that they are not, don't have a problem on it. My observation is this: I will be willing to put a bet on the table, and there's probably people around who could correct me. There was a group doing this 35 years ago who said flame retardant materials are wonderful. We're going to protect kids. This is a safety issue. And it's a classic case of the law of unintended consequences. Today, we know that was a bad decision, but I'm sure they were earnest and well-meaning at that time. But today, we're trying to correct things that couldn't have been foreseen at the time. I think it's just a cautionary tale for what we do as legislators, I think. All that said, I think this is the right way to go, and I'm going to support it.
Sure. I'm going to run away to present a bill, but before I do that, I want to have the opportunity to move that we recommend forward the bill.
Second.
A motion to report and second.
Substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
I move that we lay it on the table.
It's non-debatable.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of laying House Bill 1861 on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
4 noes, 4-4.
No, it's here, 5.
Is it 5?
4, I'm sorry, you're right.
Is it 4-4? Motion to lay on the table also fails.
Now, wait a minute. It's 5 to lay it on the table.
You got 4.
4.
Lay on the
Ayes and
table.
nays, Mr. Chairman.
All right, all in favor of laying the bill on the table, please raise your right hand.
Well, we can't, I was gonna discuss something.
Four.
No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
You just shut your vote.
5.
Hold on. And so are you
He's
voting
gonna have to
for or
raise his own
against?
hand.
You're voting for, you're gonna lay it on the table, you're not gonna lay it on the table?
Yeah, I'm laying it on the table, because we haven't heard from the manufacturers.
I can talk to manufacturers between now and committee. How about this, Mr. Chairman? I will have a conversation with Mr. Matt Bassi, and I will talk to the retailers before this gets forward. Right?
Mr. Chairman, I thought this had been laid on the
It has been
table.
laid on the table.
And it's on the table, if you want to talk to the chairman and bring it back, the chairman has that purview.
Motion to
Is
lay.
that not right?
Motion to lay on the table. Certified.
I didn't say indefinite.
Lay on the table. I thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
All right, all right, you'll turn your attention to, let's do House Bill 1938. This is, here. That's all right, roll on, you know.
He looked at the clock.
I know.
He knew you that big something to hold.
That's exactly right. Sorry.
All right, the next bill is
Sorry.
Two places at once, probably.
1938.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, 1938 is a bill that authorizes the use of a sling bow to hunt small game and big game. You remember last year, Delegate Ferris introduced a bill to allow slingshots as a weapon and for small game. And this bill would allow what has now become a weapon for big game, mainly, it is in North Carolina, it's legal.
This is still on our docket.
And it is 1938. And what it is a slingshot, and in the fork of the slingshot, if you picture that, there is a arrow rest, and so the arrow rests in that, in the rest, and then you pull the arrow back with the sling itself, and that's what propels the arrow. It does have the capability of propelling that arrow the same distance as a longbow or a recurve would, which is our criteria for whether or not a weapon is strong enough to use for big game. And I have amended the bill to, if you could, of course, the bills are not to include bear and elk. That's correct.
Your amendment's needed now. You've already got that taken care of.
Well, no, I will need to.
Okay.
I move the amendment.
I'm not sure I have that, Mr.
Do
Chairman.
that? Okay,
You
I'm
have to
sorry.
draw it
It would be on line 82. No, that's. Let's see. Wherever it's appropriate. I thought we had.
I'm sorry, you said you're taking bear out?
Taking bear and elk out. So on the top. Correct. There was some concern, I don't know if they are or not, but there was some concern that maybe they were, so. This
Yeah.
is only fine. 81, Scott?
But that's what line 82.
I gotta get rid of
Say
that.
except when hunting bear or elk.
Let's go. Is that suitable with the paper?
Yeah.
Okay, now we can entertain a motion.
I move the amendment.
Okay. Does everyone understand the amendments?
Can they read the amendment?
Well, all those in favor of the amendment?
Is there a second?
But, we had a question over here. Did you have a question?
Can they read the amendment again?
Mr. Chairman, on line 82,
after section 29.1-306, we will insert except when hunting bear or elk.
Okay, does everyone understand what the amendment does? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that the next largest animal is gonna be deer. And I guess assurances that indeed this is powerful enough that you're gonna be able to take down a deer without causing it to be just injured and be in pain. I think that's what we're trying to do here, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I may, that's correct, Elder Boulder. It is being used to hunt deer in North Carolina now, and similarly to a recurve or a longbow, you know, it's only gonna be as strong as the person that's using it. So, if the person using it cannot shoot it to propel it, I think it's 100 yards. How far is it, guys? 100 yards, then it wouldn't be a legal weapon. But this will do that with the right person behind it. So that was the intention.
Okay, any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I was just arriving as you started. I promise you I will get asked about this up in Arlington.
Sure.
A sling bow launches an arrow that's how big? Is it the same as same size arrow as a regular bow?
Yes, it is. And it's basically, I explained it earlier, it's right, you envision a slingshot, right in the fork of the slingshot is actually an arrow rest. And the arrow rest is what holds the arrow and pull it back.
And so for the game we're talking about using this for, it's currently legal to hunt with crossbow anyway, right?
Well, the sling bow, no.
No, for crossbows.
Oh, yes, for crossbow.
We're gonna allow crossbow, and these are as powerful as a crossbow?
No, no. They are equally as powerful as a recurve or a longbow, neither of which have mechanical wheels. It just basically, it's the tension of the stick, so to speak, that, you know, propels the arrow. So, it's not equal to any crossbow or compound bow, but it would be equally as powerful as a recurve or a longbow, which are currently allowed.
Okay.
Any further questions? If not, we've got a motion to accept the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the amendment has been accepted. Do I have a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, have we heard from DGIF or?
Well, we'll get a motion first, and then we still take it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if that's the order you wish to take, I move to report. Second.
Okay. Any comment from the audience? Anyone want to speak in favor of or against? Would DGI like to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, Tom Binsky, Fisheries. We've got no position on the bill, but a sling bow shoots at about the same feet per second as a longbow or a recurve bow. And the major concern from the Wildlife Bureau was bear and elk because of their size.
All right. Any questions from the committee? If not, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
1939, Blaze Pink.
Brought me a pink tie. Mr. Chairman, yours is actually Blaze Pink, I think. I appreciate you supporting me today with that tie, by the way. House Bill 1939 is pretty simple. It allows Blaze Pink to be used as a substitute for Blaze Orange for those who so desire. And having done some research on this, a couple of things I heard that were that could have been problematic. One was some colorblind, and that's not the PC term, but I don't know what the PC term is for colorblind. But anyway, those who can't.
I think that's fine.
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay. But anyway, some colorblind people can't see pink. And I said, well, that's problematic. And then I asked my optometrist friend, he said, well, some colorblind people can't see Blaze Orange either. So it's about half and half. It's not like it's one or two can't see. So
Any questions from the committee?
no, sorry.
Again, as the committee knows, I'm not a hunter. Why do we need a second color?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
It was just a way to perhaps introduce some females. They like to wear it, although some males may want to wear it too. But anyway, it was just an option, another option that's just equal. And by the way, it's equally as visible if not more visible to humans, and less visible to game.
Any further questions? Any comment from the audience, for or against? Does DGIF have a position?
Mr. Chairman, we have no position.
Mr. Chairman,
Doug first.
I have a question on the patron. Does this have anything to do with Paul's girlfriend wearing pink?
Mr. Chairman, I wish Paul had a girlfriend.
I was just gonna ask DGIF if they know if there are other states that have adopted this, and has it proven to be valuable or workable in those circumstances?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Delegate, Wisconsin, Colorado, New York, and Louisiana just passed it. And part of the drive is that the largest growing segment of hunters is teenage girls and women, and as many as 25% increase. And it's just a way for those states, I guess, to recruit, give people an option.
The Sarah Palin effect.
You ready to, some people will attribute this as a political statement. You ready to, you ready to take that?
Gained all kinds of traction on that already.
Well, any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, you know, because no doubt if I see blaze orange and I see blaze pink or blaze green, for that matter, I'm gonna be able to see it. It's just that I'm attuned when I see blaze orange, that I think hunting, and so it's an additional trigger, which makes me a little bit nervous about moving on to other colors. And I'm wondering if that's a concern you share, whether that was addressed in the other states, or whether that has been a problem whatsoever before we expand our color horizon here.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Delegate, I don't think there's been any issues in any other states. Obviously, there would be an outreach campaign, and we would have to get the word out that it was an authorized color, and we would do that through the Hunter Ed program and our Facebook, social media campaign from the agency and on our website, license data or information that we give to the hunters.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I know you want to stay here a long time, but in the woods, actually, blaze pink is probably the least often occurring. In other words, blaze orange in the fall, some leaves are that color, but there's no blaze pink leaves.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
With
Did you report?
trepidation, a move to report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been properly motioned and second to report the bill, 1939. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think we'll
That's where
we'll take
I'm-
2450
That's where I'm
next, and then
wrong.
we'll take the.
All right, 2450, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to lay that bill on the table
So
myself.
moved.
Okay.
Second. That was
All in
quick.
favor say aye.
Aye.
The bill is tabled. All right, now, 2255. Delegate Edwards.
2255, there is a substitute, Mr. Chairman, and that is, Scott, do you want to report it, or you want to get it? I'll send it around. While he's.
Is that motion to accept? All right, now the second. Substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Substitute for you. Delegate Edwards.
So all this bill, this bill is really completely different from the original intention. So the result of this bill passing means no more than we would be able to do two things. One, it creates a youth bear tag at the price of $8.50. And it also directs, if you look at line 34, so that you'll see 28 through 31, that's what I just stated, and then 34 through 37 directs the department to conduct a review and analysis of their hunting and fishing license structure. And what I'm getting at here is the intent is to have them come up with a combination sportsman's license that is more affordable for hunters and fishermen, or excuse me, hunters. And right now, it's a la carte. It's not much, maybe $1 or $2 cheaper to get the combination license they have now. But I'd like them to look at it and make it significantly more affordable for the sportsman's license, and they probably would like to comment on that, but it's just a direction and not mandated.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to add to that, while they are taking a look at the fee structure, I wish they would also consider out-of-state hunters. For instance, I understand that the bear hunt in Missouri State, it costs our hunters $480. And I believe the fee in Virginia is $150. Would someone from DGI come forward and just verify that's correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, it is currently $150 for non-resident and $111 for the annual non-resident license.
And let me say also that bear hunting is becoming extremely popular. And we have a lot of bears. They need to be taken. And I think that I support the Chairman's bill 100%. But I do think that we, as far as raising revenue, we have an opportunity to get some people. They're coming. We've got the best terrain to hunt bear, a good population, and a lot of the hunt clubs allow people to come and by the state and wherever and hunt bear on their hunt club property. And it's coming to be a very popular sport, so I ask you to do that. I guess, any questions from the committee?
No.
Yes, sir.
Jim, the 150 for non-residents, are we taking that out? It looks like we're taking that out on line 17.
That's not my intention, no. So all the language that is currently in the code would stay in the code, including what was stricken from 16 through 21.
So what's stricken here is actually not stricken.
We should mention this as a slightly outdated version of this substitute. So the substitute that is before the committee should include only the language that's on the back. So no amendments.
I'm sorry.
To this.
So
first
just
substitute.
34.
Imagine it's just the bill on the back.
We'll just consider 28 through 33.
27.
27, okay.
Well,
So front page is, we're not doing anything. Okay.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
A question for DGIF while we're working on them. Presently, if someone is hunting with an adult that has a license that is not licensed under the age of 16, do they have to have a bear tag?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if I could ask maybe Nana, I'm not sure what.
Question is that it's 15 and younger, they would have to have, there's not a separation right now for a youth license. The only one they would have would be the 20, if they're a resident, it would be the $21, $23 bear license.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so we would be adding $8.50 fee to that 15 and under.
My bill would be if you're 15 and under, you're $8.50, not 21, as is currently.
Currently, if you were under 15 and you were licensed to hunt by yourself, you would spend $21 to buy a large game.
The bear tag.
You would spend $21, but you would have a complete hunting license. With
No.
deer,
You would
turkey.
just have bear tag and then you'd have to buy deer and turkey separate.
Okay.
So we have currently have an $8.50 deer tag, youth deer tag. So this would make it use a bear tag, so you don't have to spend 21 if you're youth. This would mean youth could get about for $8 a half instead of 21 on a bear tag.
I think keep in mind.
I may be mistaken, or I may know some kids that have been hunting illegal.
Currently, the youth combination license does include the bear and youth.
So this truly would, if he bought a use combination, but if he wanted to buy just a bear tag, he could buy it for $8.50. So with, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't mean to run away with your meeting. So currently,
this would allow him to buy a bear tag for $8.50, but only a bear tag. So what if he wanted to buy, Mr. Chairman, a deer and bear tag? What would it cost? $17?
It's $16.50 for the youth combination license, which is their hunting license, bear, deer, and turkey. The youth hunting license is $8.50, and then a bear tag would be $8.50. So it'd be almost the same thing. There is one hunt a bear versus hunting everything.
Mr. Chairman.
Done.
So they'll still be able to buy the combo that would include bear, the youth combo that would include bear. Or they can just buy a bear tag, and that would save them.
$8.50.
Okay.
Well, I guess the question would be, would hunting on the youth day create the expense, additional expense to the person who already has, the youth who already has purchased a bear hunting license? Isn't that the question? In other words,
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding, they don't have to have a license on youth day. Is that correct or not?
They would have to have a license, Mr. Chairman. They just, what this does is currently there is no youth bear tag separate. There is a combo tag, but you can't just get a youth bear tag for a resident youth.
okay, so the $8.50 would cover the youth day and the whole season, but for someone, for the youth.
Yes, sir.
All right, any further questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a quick comment, but I know there's been a lot of discussion about affordability, and I'm cognizant and appreciative of that. I guess what I've always appreciated about the hunting and fishing community is they realize that their fees are going to sustain the resource. That's very important. Just assuming that while you're looking at how to make this affordable for hunters, that the bottom line is making sure that the fee structure is in a way that supports the resource for the long-term enjoyment of Virginians. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's one of the things they could look at with the non-resident, if they elect to, and hopefully will, bring the combination tag down, to bring the non-resident up, and offset that income.
Just want to make sure they're doing that math. Sure.
Okay, any further questions?
Move the report.
Second.
A motion and a second to report. House Bill 2255, the substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman.
Mr.
That
Chairman.
concludes our meeting. We don't have any more meetings?
That's it?
That's Delegate Lopez talks you into.
No.
Okay.
I will. Thank you, Tom. Be careful. You're gonna hit the rush hour this morning.